I'll need to let me. Oh, thank you. First of all, let me just say that we were so honored. We want to thank Judy, and we were so honored that Judy would extend the invitation to us to include some of the paintings in our collection as a part of this particular venue of shows that really have to do with personal interest. It's just this is a fabulous collection, a fabulous suite of exhibits. We had the chance today to come and take a look at this, and every one of them is just incredible, I think, show of art and photography. And again, when we were able to see artworks on the wall along with it, of course, if any of you that are collectors of anything realize that it's always a treat to see things that you have loved and appreciated over time and have the opportunity to bring into your home. It's wonderful to see it on another wall under the great light that they have here. So really, thank you so much. And I also want to say to the Grace and everybody here at the Grace, you guys have been so wonderfully hospitable, and we were grateful for that. But you've also been this has been an important museum for all of us who have interest in Texas art. There's a real legacy and a continuing legacy, I think, of showing Texas art and artists right here at the Grace in Abilene, and we really appreciate that. I know, again, all the staff have been instrumental in that, particularly Judy. We're grateful for her leadership, and now she's sitting on the board of Cassetta where she should have been all along, and so we're happy that she's continuing that way. Linda and I, just a little bit about the collecting, and if I missed something or failed to say something on this part of it, please let me know. Linda and I will be, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary this last month. And one of the things that we realized when we were having some champagne is that we've actually collected art for 45 of those 50 years. We started off as teachers and school administrators. We didn't really intentionally do that, but we fell into public schools and began to be teachers and administrators. We started in Alabama. We were from Texas, but we ended up in Alabama, and then went to Michigan for a while and taught and got into administrative jobs there. Came back here and finished our graduate programs, and then went into a series of school administrative positions across the state. So we spent 35 years in public education, most of that in Texas. When we came back, when we started collecting, we bought our first home in Michigan, and we knew that we wanted art on the walls because we both taken an art appreciation class while we were in college. We finished our undergraduate degrees, our master's degrees, and our doctorates together, and then we stayed in the same profession together, which has made it a really wonderful opportunity for us as we do. But we both knew from the art appreciation class that we had taken that we didn't know exactly what kind of art that we wanted, but we knew we wanted stuff on the walls that looked really neat and really good. So we bought our first painting at an antique show in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was an unsigned Bierstadt painting. And we spent the first 5 years trying to authenticate that painting. We found, when we got to Fort Worth, that we found a book on Albert Bierstadt, and we found that the original of the painting that we owned was missing. And what we realized immediately is that we had a forgery. And so, too bad. Someone had actually, we thought just until we bought the book and actually read it, that we had stumbled upon something that was really great. But I tell you, that painting led us into collecting American Western art, and then when we moved back to Austin in 1978, we started collecting Texas art exclusively. And so we built a collection over these years, trying to look at the evolution of art in the state from about 1920, which was really when art takes hold in Texas, to about 1980. And there's a lot of wonderful things that have happened since 1980, but we just think that by 1980, art's firmly established in the state. There was a really thriving community, and it's just going on from there. But we have we try to kind of mark the progression of Texas art during that period in Texas, and to also sort of look at what was going on geographically in the state. We sort of, on our own, divided the state into about 8 different geographic sectors and tried to track who was painting between 1920 and 1980 in those sites in the state, and to try to get the best representative examples that we could afford, operating on sort of a moderate budget, school teachers. And so we tried to do that. And so what's happened is you look up after 45 years and you've accumulated several hundred paintings. So, it's been a wonderful experience and a wonderful journey. Part of what happened to us in the course of this is we've always sort of been attracted to portraiture. Portraiture has not always been the most collectible of subjects among active collectors. I'm not quite sure why that is, but not necessarily figurative work. But figurative work has always been, I think, always had a strong following. But portraiture itself has not always necessarily been, just a staple in the art community. But for us, finding portraits that were meaningful and filled with art, and that's what we wanted to talk to you about, we actually realized later on, as we looked at it, that great portraiture, painterly portraits of people really had a profound impact on us and an influence on us. And it reminded us, I think when you look at a collection and a collector, when you look at a collector's home, the collection says as much about the collector as it really does, I think, about the art that's on the wall. Why something is selected, why something is there, what place it holds, in the collection, how it interacts with other aspects of it. It's really very, very, very important. So what's happened over the course for us of time is that we've developed a sub-collection of important to us, portraits that have meaning and a personal meaning to us. So the idea of up close and personal, it kind of resonated with us because as we want to talk to you about this tonight, the reasons that we picked certain paintings and what those paintings mean to us is the storyline that we want to try to convey. So with all this, I just wanted to kind of give you a little backdrop about our collecting interest over the years and the focus that we've tried to concentrate on. So why don't we get into looking at some of the works that are there. We're going to kind of walk through, and again, what we hope to point out is why this painting exists in our home, why it holds a place on our walls in our home. Hopefully it'll help you appreciate maybe a little bit more of the backstory about each one of these. I think we're going to start with Linda on this now. She actually gets to talk tonight. I won't be doing all of that.
And I don't know whether you can hear me, but if you can, it would be nice because we are going to go back and forth as we go through the portraits. This is Cyril Hopkins, Uncle Cyril. This is my great uncle, Cyril Hopkins. I remember as a very young girl, and I did not know Uncle Cyril. But this portrait of Uncle Cyril was in the home of Uncle Joe, his brother. Uncle Joe also had red hair. By the time I knew him, it was mostly white. And I had no idea as a child anything about portraits or paintings or who the artist was. But the artist of this particular, of Uncle Cyril, is Royston Nave, and Royston Nave and Uncle Cyril served together in World War I. So this is a real special painting. We did acquire it from the estate, and we haven't had it that long, but it is, and I think we said his Chesterfield cigarette in his hand. I don't know, this is 1919. I know my grandfather rolled his own cigarettes. So, and I remember him doing that in the 50s. He didn't smoke too much longer, but I do remember him rolling his own cigarettes. So I'm not sure whether this is a Chesterfield or whether it's rolled.
So that's really that's probably one of the oldest paintings that we have in the collection. 1919 is right at the beginning of where we're collecting, and it happened to be a family piece that Linda was able to come by. Royston Nave is a great Texas artist. He died too young at 42 years old. He died down in Harlingen. He painted in New York after the war. He was actually in a group of painters called, what were they called? They had a name. This will happen so often tonight because we're carrying on the same kind of
We will go
conversation.
on to the next.
That's right, we're carrying on the same conversation that we have at the house, and that is, I can't remember half the things we talked about. This particular work is by Harold Bugbee. Harold, this is 1921, and this work we acquired from Mrs. Bugbee before she passed away, so we were really pleased. Harold Bugbee was one of Texas' first cowboy artists. He was actually, in addition to, he was actually a working cowboy artist. He was ranch first, and he actually ended up inheriting a part of that. He was also the first curator at the Panhandle Plains Historical Museum, and in his day, I think really very proficient artist. This particular one is called Evening on the Red, and it's a self-portrait. Mrs. Bugbee said that they kept this in their house, and it was in the Bugbee Ranch house until Mrs. Bugbee moved out of the house, and she was kind enough to sell that to us. But this is him painting himself, overlooking, I guess, herd of cattle for somewhere down below in 1921. So we were really pleased to have it. This particular work is by an obscure artist who had incredible training. This guy's named George Hampton, and he worked down in outside of Beaumont, Port Arthur and Beaumont. This particular work was done in 1924. He was actually, this is an example to us of what happened to a lot of Texas artists. He went to Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, was trained there as a Chicago Art Institute, also Art Students League. During his early training, and he came back home and basically labored in obscurity in his hometown over in Deepest, Texas. No one really knowing much about him or appreciating the art that he did. But we were happy to get this from his estate and from the daughter as a part of the collection. Again, it's a wonderful painting. It reminds us of Robert Hemright, who also was a Pennsylvania Academy trained painter, and it also just kind of reminds us of the fact that when you were Texas artists back in those days, you kind of took your own life into your hands because you were in terms of your professional career, because you were stationing yourself out in some fairly remote territory in terms of the real art market. So, and then this one also is a painting that we bought. This is by Wayman Adams, and Wayman Adams is actually an Indiana artist. And during his time, this particular work was done in the 30s. But Wayman Adams was probably one of the most, probably in his day, the foremost portrait artist in America. He actually painted many important personages around the country. And he married a lady from Austin. He moved to Austin in the early 30s. He stayed there and he died there. And while he was there in Austin, his home and their home, she was also an artist, their home became really a sort of a center of activity for local artists. We bought this painting because it was sold. When he died, incidentally, his son sold several years later his entire estate in one single auction, which suppressed the market for the next 40 years. But this was a catalog auction here in Austin. This particular work was entitled, it was a full-page display, it was entitled Portrait of Morris Guest. It was acquired, and we subsequently acquired it, and what we realized it was not a portrait of Morris Guest at all. It was a portrait of Morris Guest. The portrait of Morris Guest, this was in a frame that was apparently the portrait of Morris Guest once set in that same frame. It has the Venice Biennale sticker on the back, and we were very excited that we had acquired this important work shown in the Venice Biennale. And in fact, it is the Wheaton Museum has that painting. We have that frame, and we have this one. So, but we love it, and it's a great painting by the Texas, who became Texas.
This is a portrait of Mamie Brown. The artist is Kathleen Blackshear, and Kathleen Blackshear is from Minnesota. Mamie Brown was the neighbor's cook, and Kathleen painted Mamie numerous times. We acquired this painting from the Blackshear family in Minnesota. This is a lithograph Also by Kathleen Blackshear. She was a printmaker as well as a painter. This is a lithograph of a real young person, a young boy in Navasota, Richard Gould. And Kathleen Blackshear was trained in New York. She taught at Chicago Art Institute. She really didn't move back. She didn't live in Navasota. She was in Chicago, but she painted African American figures and scenes from her hometown her whole life.
And that's a small print. The painting of that is in the Avid Museum in New Orleans. They recently, a cassette showed that. The curator from the Avid Museum was there and showed that painting. We were pleased to know that we had at least one of the lithographs on it. This painting is by a Dallas artist by the name of Donald Vogel. Donald Vogel, the reason I keep getting myself garbled here, is the father of Kevin Vogel, and some of you will know Kevin Vogel as the owner of Valley House Gallery. And Donald Vogel painted very actively in the 40s, the 50s, well, all through his life. He actually spent more time in Fort Worth with a group of artists that were working in Fort Worth, a sort of group of modernist, avant-garde artists called Fort Worth Circle. He actually got a little bit more inspiration from them, and I think spent more time over there. But this is very typical of what he did in those early days in terms of creating these young women that were in these settings along with still lives. They're called Vogel girls, and he became kind of famous for that. This particular one was an example that he showed, I think, in 1945 or 46 in the Texas General from that year, which was one of the important exhibitions that we used to hold here in the state. This is Florence McClung. It's a drawing, a large drawing, a study that was done for a portrait. One of our good friends has the actual portrait that she was sitting for here in this drawing. This was done in 1936, and she's probably better known for her really great regionalist Texas landscapes that she did, but she was also a really fine portraitist. And we just, again, really enjoy this particular work, and it's really great to track down and have a good friend who owns the actual final painting of that. Going back to Fort Worth Circle, there was a group, again, of painters that were there. Some of you will be familiar because of their proximity here to Albany and the old jail museum. This is actually a portrait of Bill Beaumont. Bill Beaumont was one of the prominent artists and important artists out of that Fort Worth Circle. Probably the most painted artist, I believe, that was in the Fort Worth. There was a lot of interplay, as you'll see here, and also down in Houston. There was a lot of artists painting other artists, painting their friends. And Bill Beaumont, because I think he had some sort of muscular disorder. I'm not quite sure what that was, but he actually had he sat and made a really apparently engaging kind of subject, and his expressions and his whole musculature were really great. This one is done by Flora Blanc, who was again one of the artists in the Fort Worth Circle, and a wife of Dixon Reeder. And Dixon Reeder does this one of Veronica Helfensteller. This is a portrait of, again, another one artist from that group of Fort Worth artists. This one, again, Veronica, is executed by Dixon Reeder. And I think Dixon Reeder must have been probably the best portraitist, in our opinion, of that particular group. Both this one and also the Flora Blanc painting were shown in the Texas General exhibitions as well. At Baylor University, there was Edmund Kinzinger. And Edmund Kinzinger was actually a German artist via France. came here and became the head of the department there in the late 30s or the mid 30s. And this painting was done. He's known for doing a lot of portraiture, a lot of figurative work. He did his thesis on Mexican subject matter, and then he also did African American, even Native American in Santa Fe subject matter. This particular one is one that he did in 1938. And again, this was one that I believe was shown in one of the exhibitions. So, important artist there. You'll notice, I think, one of the things that Linda and I are mindful of, or have been mindful of in our collecting, we grew up in little towns in Texas, not too far from each other. They're pretty diverse. I grew up in Brazoria County, Linda grew up in Jackson County. In Brazoria County, there's a part of early settlement of Texas, large African American population there, primarily descendants of slaves who were brought there to work those early plantations. But in our community, in the community I grew up, there were African American folks all around us, and we played. And even though it was a segregated society at the time when we were growing up, we certainly played and had pickup baseball and football and all those kinds of things. So one of the things that we've always embraced, and Linda's the same way in Jackson County. There was actually even a larger Hispanic contingent there in Jackson County. But one of the things that we've always embraced and have always appreciated about Texas is the diversity of our communities. And so we, in our collecting, we really wanted to get imagery that reflected, the full range, we thought, of what Texas was like and what Texans were like. And so you'll notice that, I think, in some of the subject matter. This is Cecil Casper. Cecil Casper was a San Antonio artist. This particular work is called
The Frame Maker.
The Frame Maker.
The Frame Maker.
And I think we think that it's a portrait actually, that it's a portrait of Leopoldo Gonzalez, who was a part of a group. Cecil Casper started a group called the Men of Art Guild in San Antonio. There were folks here who were collectors of Casper. Cecil Casper was prominent in the establishment of that group. They were active in, again, the 40s, 50s, 60s. Casper, I think, University of Texas product, was really a really wonderful artist. Leopoldo Gonzalez was a part of the group, but he was also the frame maker for the group. And he was a revered frame maker for the group. And here, I think what he's showing is a maestro here making these frames. And this is sort of a testament to him. The frame, I'm not sure who made this particular frame. I don't know if that's also Leopoldo's work or not. But the frame itself is really good. It's a stunning frame. Linda, why don't you talk some?
So you've seen Dallas artists, Fort Worth, San Antonio. Now we're going to start a group of Houston artists. This is a portrait by Henry Gavois, Houston artist, of his wife, Leila McConnell. Leila is holding their cat, Suntan. It's called Portrait of a Dress, an interesting title to assign to a portrait you painted of your wife. Leila and Henry were among, I think they were the first living artists that we met. We had collected art, we'd been collecting art for many years, but mostly we had collected art done by artists who were deceased. Henry and Leila, we met, and they could tell us about their paintings. We got to talk to the artist who did the work, and it was so interesting. It really opened up a whole new world of collecting art for us. So this is Henry's portrait of Leila and Suntan. This is Leila's self-portrait. Henry passed away last year. Leila is still going strong, painting in Houston. But this is her self-portrait when she was a young woman. This is Leila's portrait of another artist in Houston, Alvin Romansky. We don't have any Alvin Romansky paintings, but this is one of my absolute favorite portraits. Leela is a wonderful artist, not just portraiture, but the colors that she selected. This is a really interesting, fun painting. And this is, again, Leela painting another Houston artist, Stella Sullivan. And we also knew Stella, who has since passed away as well. But we have several works of Stella's. This is one of them. This is Stella Sullivan's painting of David Muncrief, who was an art collector, a local florist in Houston, but an art collector in Houston. So these are all portraits of artists painting other artists or friends in Houston. One thing that I would say before Bill takes over for the next round, we have a few more Houston artists to share with you. When we first met Leela and Henry, they had really kind of quit painting. They had had a fire in their home 20 years before, 15 years before. It had not burned the home down, but there was a lot of smoke damage. So the paintings they had at that time, they had Henry had cut off the stretcher, rolled them up, put them in the attic. They started getting them out for us, and we were so excited to see their art. Now, it had some smoke damage, and they said, well, we were thinking we were probably just going to have to throw these away. So we bought a few paintings from them, but our interest and the interest of really other people that we knew in their work, they kind of got excited about the work. And they didn't have to throw any of their paintings that were smoke damaged. You can clean smoke damage off paintings, and we restretched the ones that we bought. So some of the paintings that you just saw were ones that we got that we actually had to have cleaned and restretched before they could be framed.
And I'm kind of laughing. Linda said we were excited and we were pleased, and we bought a few paintings. We bought 22 paintings.
I'm not sure how many we bought. Actually, we just bought another painting from Leela less than a year ago, so just a few months ago.
And really, Leela's the only one of that group still living. She's 92, and she's remarkable. And she left this particular, as accomplished as she was here in these wonderful mid-century paintings, which we really do enjoy. She moved, she went to one of her she'd gone to Rush University, and then she went off to San Francisco. And she came back, she really moved to a much more abstract, more Rothko looking, sort of approach to what she's doing. And it's just really, really incredible abstract work she wrote. This is another Houston artist who, again, is shuffled off this mortal coil, and that is a guy by the name of Herb Mears. Herb Mears is generally associated with another artist. We have portraits you're buying here, but it's not in the show. That's David Addicks. David Addicks and Herb Mears, that came to Houston in 1952 after the war. They had studied in Paris together, when David was from Huntsville, and when he got back, he called his army buddy and said, hey, there is no art school in Houston, Texas. Get down here and we can make a killing on art school. and so they came down.
That would be just like David.
That's right. And those of you who do not know David Addicks, he's such a character. He's 92 as well, and still going strong. But anyway, they came down and they opened up an art school. The art school lasted for 5 months, and then they just was not a successful operation.
They were artists, not entrepreneurs.
Herb said that he would have left and gone back to New York, but he didn't have any money, so he had to stay in Houston, and he painted for the next 35 years in Houston and had a really successful career. This is very much like what he did. In those days, in Houston, Texas, all the homes in River Oaks had Herb Mears and they had David Addicks. They were the School of Paris work, and you still see them all over Houston. And we sold a lot of them when we had our gallery. We did have a gallery in Houston selling this kind of work because there was no other place for that to be sold and shown in Houston. So that was great. This is another Houston artist who has passed away, apparently, with Don Edelman. This is a self-portrait. It's called Four Letter Word. Don painted this. He painted himself painting plein air at his easel, and he was such a perfectionist, he could never get it right, so he's cursing. So that's the reason for the word, for the title, Four Letter Word. He painted himself cursing his own artwork. He also said that when he looked at it and he realized that he painted himself with only one ear, he decided that he would use the Van Gogh green in order to, as an homage to one of his important inspirations. So a great painting. This guy probably started all the portrait painting, or much of the portrait painting that you've seen in Houston, Texas, and that's Robert Joy. He was the society painter for Houston portraiture. He came from Pennsylvania Academy in Houston during the Depression in the early 30s. He went to work as a draftsman for Foley's department store, and he was then doing portraiture on the side. But he really became the most important, I think, portraitist in Houston. And this is a really great self-portrait of him. It's done later in his life, but we just really love it, and it's a special one to us because it was given to us by a good friend of ours who was the art liaison for the mayor's office there in Houston, Texas. It was a wonderful gift to receive. It was great. Another person who was instrumental in Houston art, and another artist who's really important. The next three works are by Kermit Oliver. Some of you may know Kermit Oliver and know his work. Great African American artist. He's out of that group of artists that came out of the Texas Southern University School of Art, named Dr. John Biggers. He was the first African American artist to really get mainstream artist or gallery representation in Houston. The person that gave him that representation is this gentleman right here. This is Kermit Oliver's portrait of Ben DuBose. Ben DuBose had DuBose Gallery, which was a big major gallery in Houston, one of those that really began actually Ben was working at another gallery representing him and opened his own gallery, but in the 60s. But he was active selling art to Houstonians from really the 40s on. But this is a great tribute to him. It was done as an homage after his death, given to his wife. This is a self-portrait that Kermit did. Kermit Oliver did a series of self-portraits from the time that he was at Texas Southern University. This is a small self-portrait, but really powerful. This is the earliest self-portrait that we're aware of that he did during his student years, and so he's showing it's sort of up close and personal, as you can see in the real statement about what was going on there. This is also a Kermit Oliver. This is actually a watercolor wash that he did. Kermit was from Refugio. His family, he grew up with a family in Refugio, Texas. They were African American cowboys that had grown up down in that part of the world, worked with ranchers down in that country. And he did his first series of his works that he did when he went to Texas Southern really was about his family and the folks that he knew growing up. And this is a great example that all these came from DuBose Gallery and were shown and sold to DuBose at the time. But a really incredible artist, an important Texas artist.
And this is a painting by a young man, Carl Hall. He is a Texas Southern University trained artist. This is a painting of his grandmother. And it's called Plant Your Seed. When the gallery had an exhibition of TSU TSU trained artists. Carl was in that exhibition, and Bill and I were there. Well, actually, we were just leaving the gallery because we had looked at the exhibition to see all of the works that had been hung. Carl was coming in the door of the gallery with his mother. Now, this is his grandmother, who, of course, had passed, but he was bringing his mother to see the exhibition and to see his works that were in the exhibition, of which this was one. And his mother said to us, Carl introduced us, and his mother said, when Carl was young, he just about broke us. He wanted colored pencils and paper. He loved to draw. From the time he was a young boy, he was drawing. And she said we didn't have money for all that. He was going through a lot of colors and a lot of colored pencils and paper. But she told her husband, we're going to get him pencils and paper so he can draw. So it was just a very, very sweet conversation we had with his mom.
This is Manuel Acosta. The last two paintings here are from Picasso. This is Manuel Acosta from the 60s. Very much influenced by Peter Herd. You can see, I think, resemblance. He worked with her on a couple of murals. He paints this. This is actually a fairly large portrait. We thought it was a really great example of painting that really portrayed sort of the dignity that we see, in labor and work, having grown up in a lot of that, and we thought that it was really beautifully treated. It's called The Irrigator, done in 1962. It's a really wonderful work. And then the last one is Bill Ragusa. This is actually a work that Bill did right before he did this in Kansas City. He went to Kansas City Art Institute, and he did this work there while he was finishing his training. But he went to El Paso in the late 40s and stayed there and painted a lot of figurative work, but mostly works that would be West Texas or New Mexico subject matter. We just thought this was a particularly strong example of his early portraiture, so that's why it's there. So that's it. That's a quick overview of the works that we I think we want to end this the way it was started. If you have some questions, we'd be happy to answer them. You don't need to feel like you have to generate any questions to satisfy us. You've been sitting for a while. We would like to invite people to just go upstairs if you want and kind of take a look at these in person now that you've seen them. Paintings always look better in person than they do, when you see them on the screen like this. So take a look at them. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them as we can. But we want to end kind of the way we started, and that is we want to say thank you. We want to say thank you again to everybody for being with us tonight, listening to our little observations. But again, we want to really thank Judy and the folks here at the group. It's so hard to do.